What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Johnny K Picks. And in this video, I'm going to go over my full card picks and predictions for UFC 271, Adesanya versus Whittaker. So before I jump into my highlights for UFC Vegas 47, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for me and turn on those notifications so you don't miss out on any of my content. Alright, so UFC Vegas 47 was a pretty good fight card all around. There were some upsets, some fights I totally missed on, but hey, that happens every now and then, and it makes for good entertainment. So one of the highlights for me was the Rosa-Peterson fight, and yeah, that was definitely the fight of the night for sure. It was just a bloody mess of a fight. They left it all out there, just swinging as hard as they could, each punch, and it ended up going a split decision. It could have went either way for me. I did have a Rosa on a late bet that I actually forgot I placed because I was so into that fight. And I ended up finding out I won that bet after. So when that happens, it's always good. But overall, that was a great fight. And another highlight for me was the Battle Gore fight. And yeah, that was the real tough championship fight. That's what it should have been. All around really good fight. I was impressed with both guys, but Battle seemed like he wanted it a little bit more in the third round. Gore had a chance to win that fight, but he's just really low volume, and I think he's going to learn from this loss, but I do see a bright future for both these guys. And probably the best highlight for me was the performance by Shavkat Rakhmonov. This guy is the truth. He literally made Harris look like an average regional fighter. That's how good this guy is. And he has awesome stand-up game. He has awesome ground game, which he didn't even need to use this time. He's going to be a big problem in the welterweight division. This was a really good test for him. I wanted to see how he would do, and he passed with flying colors. So I think he's definitely ready to fight someone near the top 15 or even like number 15 or 14. So I'm looking forward to this guy. I do think he's a future contender in this division, and he's just exciting to watch. Alright, so let's get to my picks for UFC 271. First fight we have is Jeremiah Wells versus Mike Mathetha. Wells is 9-2-1, 35 years old, 5'9" with a 75-inch reach. And Blood Diamond is 3-0, not sure his age, 5'11", and 74.5-inch reach. So I wouldn't doubt it one bit if the Blood Diamond ends up being everyone's favorite underdog bet, but I'm going to say that Jeremiah Wells gets it done here. So Mathetha has a ton of kickboxing experiences. I think he has over 50 or 60 fights, and he's a really good kickboxer, but unfortunately he only has 3 MMA fights under his belt. So I do think that he's going to have a little bit of inexperience in this fight, and not to mention his last MMA fight was almost 2 years ago. Wells is taking this fight on short notice, but it's going to be really hard to pick against him with his MMA experience against Blood Diamond. So both guys have really good, powerful strikes, and I will give Wells the advantage in the wrestling department. And I'm not sure how Blood Diamond's going to look if he does get taken down, but I'm almost certain Wells is going to implement a wrestling game plan in this fight and just try to take down Blood Diamond and keep him there. So with my pick, I'm going to say Wells gets the job done, maybe by a ground and pound KO in the second or third round. Next fight we have is Douglas Silva de Andrade versus Sergey Morozov. Andrade is 27-4, 36 years old, 5'7" with a 68.5-inch reach. And Morozov is 17-4, 32 years old, 5'6" with a 67-inch reach. So in this fight, I'm going to go ahead and say Morozov's going to win. Both guys have a lot of MMA experience, but Morozov's definitely going to have the wrestling and grappling advantage in my eyes. But I would give the slight advantage in striking to Andrade. But I'm going to be honest, I don't see how this fight doesn't get to the mat. I think Morozov is just going to keep trying to get him taken down, keep him on the mat in top control, and he's going to end up grinding out a decision win. Moving on up the card, we have Jacob Malkoun versus AJ Dobson. Malkoun is 5-1, 26 years old, 5'9" with a 73-inch reach. And Dobson is 6-0, 30 years old, 6'1" with a 77-inch reach. So for me, this is almost a no-brainer pick, but I'm going to go ahead and say Dobson wins. Dobson's making his UFC debut, and he looked very impressive in his Dana White Contender Series win. He has powerful striking, and his wrestling takedowns are really good. Though I will say Malkoun's wrestling is pretty decent as well. I just think Dobson's striking is going to be the big advantage in this fight. And a couple fights ago, Malkoun got rocked by Phil Hawes, and I think this is going to be exactly what happens again. I think Dobson's going to eventually catch him with a powerful right hand and he's going to go down, and I think it's just going to be ground and pound from there. Maybe late in the first round or second round. I don't see this fight lasting too long. Next fight we have is Carlos Ulberg versus Fabio Cherant. Ulberg is 3-1, 31 years old, 6'4" with a 77-inch reach. And Cherant is 7-3, 27 years old, 6'1" with a 76-inch reach. So in this fight, I'm going to go ahead and pick Ulberg to win. So last time out, Ulberg's gas tank faded fast in the first round. But to his defense, he was trying to finish his opponent, and he ended up getting knocked out early in the second round. But I do think he's going to learn from that fight. He is a very good striker, a kickboxer, and luckily for him, he is fighting Cherant, and I just don't think this guy is UFC material. In his last two fights, he has been finished in the first round, one by submission and one by knockout. I'm not saying he's a trash can level fighter, but I just don't see how Ulberg loses this fight unless his cardio goes out again. That's the only little red flag for me, but he's going to have the better striking, as I said. So I'm going to say Ulberg wins this by first round knockout. Next fight we have is Alexander Hernandez versus Renato Moicano. Hernandez is 13-4, 29 years old, 5'9" with a 72-inch reach. And Moicano is 15-4-1, 32 years old, 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. So honestly, I do think this fight's going to be a really close fight. It's going to be good. I don't think this fight's going to go the distance. It's either going to be a Hernandez knockout or a Moicano submission. So with my pick though, I'm going to say that Hernandez gets the knockout. So Hernandez is going to have the better striking, and obviously Moicano's going to have the better grappling. And that's not to say that Hernandez has bad wrestling or grappling or Moicano has bad striking. Both these guys are finishers, and they do tend to get finished a decent amount of times as well. I just think Hernandez is going to be able to stuff the takedowns and be a little bit more sound on the feet with his striking. And I just see this fight playing out. Hernandez is going to end up getting the knockout probably in the second or third round. Moving on up the card, we have Ronnie Lawrence versus Mana Martinez. Lawrence is 7-1, 29 years old, 5'8" with a 70.5-inch reach. Martinez is 9-2, 25 years old, 5'10" with a 70-inch reach. Okay, so this is one of my first no-brainer picks of the night, and I'm going to say that Lawrence wins this. So this is just a classic wrestler versus striker matchup, but Ronnie Lawrence is pretty good all around. He's a good, well-rounded fighter. He does like to use his wrestling a lot, and he's very successful doing it. I believe in his last two fights, he has about 20 takedowns, so he does go for takedowns. He has good cardio, good wrestling. His striking is pretty good as well. And with Martinez, he's just a classic striker. He has a pretty good striking game. He does knock out a lot of people, but he does have pretty bad takedown defense. And with Lawrence, that's just going to be the easy way to get the decision here, I think. So with my pick, I'm going to say Lawrence just keeps taking down Martinez. It's going to be rinse and repeat, and he's going to cruise to an easy decision. Next fight we have is William Knight versus Maxim Grishin. Knight is 11-2, 33 years old, 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. And Grishin is 31, 9-2, 37 years old, 6'3" with a 76-inch reach. So this is going to be another close fight for me, and honestly, I'm not too excited about this one, but I'm going to go ahead and take a stab, and I'm going to say that William Knight wins this one. Knight is taking this fight on a short notice, and like I said, not the biggest fan of Knight. He really only has about one round of gas tank and power in him. And then if he doesn't get the knockout in the first round, he tends to just tail off in the second and third round. But I'm going to go ahead and say he does get the knockout in the first. Grishin is a little bit older. He has a lot of experience, but I do think once Knight lands cleanly one time, I think it's going to go down. So with my pick, I'm going to go ahead and say Knight wins by first round knockout. Next fight we have is Alex Perez versus Matt Schnell. Perez is 24-6, 29 years old, 5'6" with a 65.5-inch reach. And Schnell is 15-6, 32 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. So with my pick in this fight, I'm going to say that Perez wins this one. I think the line is a little bit off in this fight, and I don't even know if I would want to touch Perez's line. So it might be worth throwing a little bit of money on Schnell, but I do think Perez will end up getting the job done. A little red flag for me is Schnell's going to be moving down from bantamweight to flyweight, And usually when that happens, a lot of times the fighters that move down, they tend to not do well for whatever reason. But Alex Perez is a pretty solid guy. He has good wrestling. His striking's pretty decent. He does leave himself open for submissions every once in a while, but I don't think there's going to be a submission attempt in this fight. I do think Perez is going to be able to take down Schnell early and often, and I think that's how the fight's going to end up playing out. So with my pick, I'm going to say Perez gets the job done by a close decision. Moving on up the card, we have Roxanne Modafferi versus Casey O'Neill. Modafferi is 25-19, 39 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. And O'Neill is 8-0, 24 years old, 5'6" with a 69-inch reach. Alright, so for me, this is definitely one of my no-brainer picks of the night, and I'm going to go ahead and say Casey O'Neill wins by bloodbath. I know this is Modafferi's last fight. She's going to be retiring after this one, but man, UFC did not give her any favors for her last fight. Though I will say, if this fight does play out in the feet, it's going to be fairly competitive. O'Neill's striking isn't quite there yet, but where she really excels is the wrestling, the ground game, ground and pound, submission game, whatever you want to say. If the fight goes to the mat, Casey O'Neill is going to just demolish Modafferi, and I do think that's how this fight's going to play out eventually. And if you don't believe me, Modafferi's takedown defense is only 25%. So yeah, O'Neill is going to take her down, and eventually I do think it's going to be a ground and pound KO in the first round. Next fight we have is Andrei Arlovski versus Jared Vanderaa. Arlovski is 32-20, 43 years old, 6'3" with a 77-inch reach. And Vanderaa is 12-6, 29 years old, 6'4" with an 80-inch reach. So this fight, I've been going back and forth with, but I ended up siding with Arlovski. I'm really not confident at all. Here's the deal with Arlovski. He's got about 2 rounds of cardio in him, and he's going to need to win both of the rounds in order to win this fight, because if it does get to the 3rd round, he's not going to win that round. He just has nothing left. He's basically out there just trying not to get hit. Jared Vanderaa isn't the greatest fighter in the world, but he's not terrible either. He does have a solid striking game, but if this fight does get to the mat, he does not have any answers when he's on his back. So if I was Arlovski, I would try to take him down. I know it's going to probably hurt his cardio, but that's the way to get the finish here. I don't see it getting finished at all, and I'm going to say that Arlovski ends up winning the first 2 rounds, and it goes to the judges' scorecard, and he wins by split decision. Moving on up the card, we have Nasrat Haqparast versus Bobby Green. Haqparast is 13-4, 26 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. And Green is 28-12-1, 35 years old, 5'10" with a 71-inch reach. This is actually a low-key banger fight, and I'm going to go ahead and say Bobby Green keeps rolling and he wins this fight. So both guys like to push the pace and throw a lot of volume, but I will give the slight edge in speed and technical striking to Bobby Green. And not to mention, if this fight does get to the mat, I will also give Bobby Green the slight advantage as well. Like I said, I think this fight's going to be really close. It's going to be really good. I know I can see it playing out in the first round being very competitive. But when 2nd and 3rd rounds hit, I do think Bobby Green's going to slowly take over with his cardio. And he tends to get better as the fight goes on. So with my pick, I'm going to say Bobby Green wins this one by decision. Next fight we have is Kyler Phillips versus Marcelo Rojo. Phillips is 9-2, 26 years old, 5'8" with a 72-inch reach. And Rojo is 16-7, 33 years old, 5'8" with a 71-inch reach. Alright, so in this fight, I'm going to go ahead and say Phillips wins. I think Phillips is going to be the more well-rounded fighter in this matchup. I like his wrestling, his striking is really good. The only little red flag with me is sometimes his fight IQ is a little bit low at times, and he does make mistakes, and you're like, why is he doing this? But he's a really good athlete. I think he's a good fighter. Both guys like to throw a lot of volume, but I think the key in this fight is going to be Kyler's wrestling ability, which he does go for takedowns a good amount of times. Phillips does average a little over 3 takedowns per 15 minutes, so that's how I see this fight playing out. It might start out on the feet, but I think Phillips is going to eventually go towards his wrestling game, and I think he's going to be able to keep Rojo down. So with my pick, I'm going to say Phillips wins by decision. All right, moving on up the card, we have Cannonier versus Derek Brunson. Cannonier is 14-5, 37 years old, 5'11 with a 77.5-inch reach. And Brunson is 23-7, 38 years old, 6'1 with a 77-inch reach. All right, so call me crazy, but I picked him last time when he was an underdog, and I'm going to stick with it, and I'm going to say Brunson's going to win this fight. So for me, this fight has Darren Till versus Derek Brunson all over it, and I think it's going to exactly play out the same way. Don't get me wrong though, Cannonier is definitely different than Till, but they're both mainly strikers. Cannonier is a little bit more powerful than Till, but his takedown defense is only 62%. So that's only going to play in the hands of Brunson, where he likes to take down his opponents early and often, stay in top control, and just go for the submission or ground and pound. Though I'm not completely writing off Cannonier, he can clip Brunson because he is a little chinny, but the way I see his fight playing out is I do think Brunson's going to get the takedown fairly easy whenever he wants, and as long as he doesn't get clipped trying to go in, I do think he's going to cruise to an easy decision here. So with my pick, I'm going to say Brunson gets the upset again and wins by decision. Next fight we have is Derek Lewis versus Tai Tuivasa. Lewis is 26-8, 37 years old, 6'3 with a 79-inch reach. And Tuivasa is 14-3, 28 years old, 6'2 with a 75-inch reach. Oh man, so this one is going to be fun for however long it lasts. And although it pains me to do this because I love me some Tuivasa, I gotta pick Derek Lewis in this fight. So mainly, I just think this is just too big of a step up right now for Tuivasa. Not to say that he can't win, but this is, like I said, a huge step up here. And I did read online somewhere that Tuivasa, I guess, accepted this fight when he was like blind drunk, he said. So I don't know if he's regretting his decision now, but hey, he's up for it. I'll admit, there's really not much to break down in this fight. Both guys are heavyweights. Both guys are powerful strikers. But I'm just done picking against Lewis. Every time I pick against him, he ends up getting the knockout or getting the win. And I just think he's a little bit more experienced. He's a little bit more powerful as well. And I think he's going to end up getting the job done late in the first round by knockout. All right, so main event time here. We have Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker. Adesanya is 21-1, 32 years old, 6'4 with an 80-inch reach. And Bobby Knuckles is 23-5, 31 years old, 6 foot with a 73.5-inch reach. So first off, this is going to be a great fight. Last time they fought, it was a great fight, so I don't see how this can't be. And I really like both guys, and it's hard for me to pick a winner here, but I gotta pick Adesanya to win. Both guys are really good strikers, but you have to give Adesanya the edge in striking. His striking is just on another level. He's super technical. He seems to always find the right times to clip someone when they're not looking. And not to mention, he has the height and reach advantage on Whittaker. But I will say though, Whittaker has shown that he can take his opponents down. And I think he's going to have to use that in this fight in order to have a chance to win. Because if he stays on the feet, Adesanya is eventually going to just piece him up and potentially get the knockout later in the fight. But if Whittaker can mix in his takedowns like he did against Gastelum, I think he's going to have a chance to win this fight. But Adesanya does have pretty good takedown defense, and I know he didn't show it in the Blachowicz fight, but let's be honest, Blachowicz is 20 to 30 pounds heavier than him. It's going to be super hard to stop every one of those takedowns. So I'm going to give him a pass on that one. With someone about his weight, it's going to be a tough time trying to get him down. But the way I see this fight playing out is I think Whittaker is going to try to get Adesanya down early. And if he's not going to be able to, they're just going to have to stand and bang for the whole fight. And like I said, if that happens, Adesanya is going to eventually piece him up. And I'm going to say Adesanya doesn't get the knockout this time. I think it's going to go to decision. And Adesanya is going to win this one. Alright guys, so those are my picks and predictions for UFC 271. Thank you everybody for watching, and on your way out, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button for me. I hope everybody enjoys the fights this weekend, and as always, happy fight night.